Hey, yo, let's go. You know what it is? Another week of that Smoke and Mare show. I'm Mike Rennie. With me, as always, the lovely Mary. How you doing?
It's going wonderful. How are you?
Great. Excited for our first nighttime release of the Smoke and Mare. This will be actually released tonight. We're filming this actually Thursday. So you'll be seeing this in a couple hours. We're excited. We're going to switch it to the nighttime and just roll with that for a little while. A little change up, but I like it because we got a great show tonight. You're not want to miss this one with the legendary Donna Barton Brothers on the show. Great interview with her. So she was so chill, huh, Mary?
Oh, she was great. She was absolutely great. And she talks through her jockey career and becoming an analyst on NBC now. And she's just a very inspirational person. So that was a great interview.
It was so cool. So cool to have someone like that who's seen a lot of stuff in the game and was a part of the game herself and dominant at one point. And so, yeah, we got that coming up. We're also going to slide into the Eddie D Stakes. Kind of interesting to choose stakes races this weekend. One of the stakes racing looked like the Baffert Open, so it kind of just sat that one out. So we chose the downhill turf stakes. Then the Woodward was the Woodward shorter field. So we're doing mostly talking here. We're going to go over the Eddie D Stakes right now. Let's kind of get into this. It's a pretty cool race because they're using the downhill turf, 6.5 furlongs, 3-year-olds and up, grade 2. And I'll kick it off here. I'm seeing the speed as of the race. The 2. Air Force Red, the 3, I think it's Gollard with Mandela, and then the 8, Dubai Key. I think those are going to be the speed of the race. Go. Try one of those or try to wire it, but I don't think any of them are holding. So I landed on the 6, Baristian, the Bowl, to sit off the pace, make that one run, coming home. And George Papa Daru, I know I probably butchered that. He's been doing very well as a trainer in the stakes race now as he's been coming up. So I like George there to get it done with the trainer and the 6 horse. Maybe probably mid-price is what I would guess there in that. What are you thinking about this pretty competitive sprint race there, Mary?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely drew attention to that 6 horse that you're talking about. But what made Sammy run was interesting to me on paper. Yeah. I like the horse. I like the fact that we're extending the distance a little bit after the last 2 starts. I'm not so sure about the whole previously trained by because we've had a couple trainer changes in the past. But, you know, I like what I see from a lot of good races that were run. I mean,
you're kind of with me. You think someone's kind of coming off the pace a little bit, huh?
I think so, because if you look at their start back in June, they ran on the Belmont Card Day or Belmont Stakes race day.
They're good.
Yeah, they did, and they lost to great horses like Casa Creed, who went on to win the 4-star Dave this year. So with that in mind, that's the direction I'm heading.
I like it. Has face better for sure. As you know, especially Casa Creed, what a horse that ended up being. I would love that horse so much. But yeah, I'm with you. I think we're both kind of, if you're leaning to play make a play, we're both kind of off the speed here. If one of the 2, 3, or 8, if one of those don't break, you never know. It could get loose. But if you've watched historically on those downhill races at Santa Anita, it is very difficult to wire them, especially with the speed being inside with the 2 and the 3. And if the 1 doesn't break, those 2 are gone. They're going to get out, and I just see them falling apart. Then I'm with the 6 there, getting it home. And Mary's horse is again.
What makes Sammy run?
What makes Sammy run? That's right. Let's get one of those 2 home coming off the pace there. It's going to be a real cool race. Santa Anita has a great, day of racing. That Saturday card is actually really competitive. There's going to be some prizes, so it's going to be a fun one to fire on there. And then let's just slide over to the East Coast and the grade 1 Woodward. We're not going to go too much into it because we all know who's in the race. Life is Good. The odds maker himself, I think, said he's going to make it 1 to 9. I'm pretty sure is what I read for him, or 1. The horses. It's Life is Good as we all know, especially against that field. You got Law Professor, Thomas Shelby. Keep me in mind and informative. Mary, what do you think? Life is Good to the house, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very hard to beat the horse. If I were, I would also go with the other Pletcher horse in this, Keep Me in Mind. I really like this horse. It was a bit of a
Me too. I saw that. Think of that.
It was a big disappointment in the last out, but it is what it is. The horse really had a good 3-year-old career and came back as a 4-year-old pretty strong in their first start back. But I don't know if they have a chance against their stablemate here.
I'm with you there. Maybe it's just the Pletcher Exacta. But it's definitely going to be Life is Good on top. At least we get to see Life is Good run. That's all I'm happy about. And I get a free square in the single throughout that card on that day, too. So if you want to try to beat him, good luck to you. Not happening. We got a cool interview. She was great. We're going to slide into that now. Let's welcome the legendary herself, Donna Barton Brothers, to the show. And here's that interview. And we are back. We have a special.
So this is the first time I'm doing this.
There we go. Special guest this week. You know her on NBC for all the big horse racing events. We welcome Donna Barton Brothers to the show. Good morning, and how are you today?
I'm great, Mike. Thanks for having me on. It's good to be on with you and Mare, and I look forward to talking horse racing with you all.
Right? Yeah, we could be more excited to have you on, as we kind of like to have every part of the game of horse racing. You're kind of our first kind of on-track analysis type person and a reporter. So we're pretty excited. And on top of that, you have a little jockey career we kind of want to get into.
Yeah, all of that.
So you started at 21 years old. And your mother was a jockey. And what made you want to decide to go into horse racing? I mean, 21 seems like you might have been looking for something else at one point and then decided this is the career for me.
Mare, that was a really nice way of not saying 21 seems old.
No, not at all. I'm just saying, maybe growing up you had a different idea of what you wanted to do, and now jockey was it.
I did. I didn't take offense to that either, by the way. 21 at the time was old. I want to say, like, when I started in 1987, you see a lot of the young riders now who, especially the ones who are U.S. born, who get a college education first. And when I started, that wasn't really, most riders did start when they were 16, 17, 18 years old. So 21 was essentially old to start. Not that anybody thought I was old, just old to start. As you know, I grew up in horse racing. I'll try to make a long story short, but my brother and sister were also both jockeys at one time. And I came from a family of really phenomenal horse riders. And so I honestly didn't think I would make a career out of that, because I didn't think I was that good at it, because compared to my brother and my sister and my mom, I was average. They were really good horse riders, horsemen. And so it wasn't until I started galloping horses when I was 17 years old that, and obviously that takes some training, because to go from just riding horses out in fields to riding thoroughbreds, so that took a while. But after about a year of doing that, I realized I'm actually really good. So what I naturally had, because of my family, I think, is that rapport with the horse and understanding the horse and reading them quickly and sizing them up and having them size me up. What took me a while to develop was the strength, the finesse, the clock in my head, all those different things that it takes. And so after about a year, I realized I'm actually really good at this. But at the time, I still thought, okay, prior to that, I wanted to be something exciting like an attorney or a vet. But once I started galloping, I was like, okay, I really like this and I want to work with horses, but I want to do something that's challenging, like be a horse trainer, because I thought, like, how challenging can it be to be a jockey? My mother, brother, and sister are all jockeys. I was wrong. I'll get to that.
Yeah, you had it. It's already in the family. Oh, I could probably just do this. They do it.
When your whole family does it, you just don't have that high of regard for it. Right?
No, it's totally true.
Right. So, in any event, when I was 21, I was galloping horses in Birmingham, Alabama, for a trainer named Danny Schweitzer. And there was this agent who had been trying to get me to ride for a while. His name was Pete Antonucci. He had my brother's book at one time. And at that same time, an old family friend from back home in Kentucky, his name was Herb Hill, asked me if I would come back to Kentucky and train his horses as a private trainer, because he was frustrated with the trainer. Now we would be talking about training at River Downs and Latonia at the time. It wasn't anything glamorous, but I thought that would be a really good start.
Yeah, you gotta learn somewhere.
So I decided, okay, I need to eliminate this jockey thing as a career option before I just go train horses. And so I told Pete, if you can get me on a horse, I'll ride it. And I just thought I would just see what it was like and then be like, yeah, that's not for me. I'm going to go do this other thing. And so my brother happened to be in town and I rode my first race and my mind was blown, because not only was it the most exciting thing I'd ever done in my life, it was also the most challenging thing I'd ever done. And I had this suddenly newfound respect for my mother, my brother, my sister.
Right.
And it was just so challenging because you spend the first couple of months really just trying to physically ride a race well, meaning use your riding crop correctly.
Yeah, the timing, the time, when to use it, when not, when to kind of hit the buzz, when to go, kind of.
So just those physical things take a while, and then it takes so many years. I mean, they say it takes 10 years to become an expert in any field, and that's 10 years of practice. And I believe that about being a jockey. I think it takes 10 years to become really, really good. And so I only rode for 11 and a half years, and I didn't stop because after 10 years, I was like, okay, I'm perfect. No, this was ready to move on. I was far from perfect. I never stopped learning the whole time that I rode. And so I found it tremendously rewarding, tremendously challenging, but I was ready to move on when I did.
That's good. And it looks like just a couple stats here: 1,130 wins, 18,658,000 in earnings. Don't know, you have to be top 2 to 3 on career earnings, I'm guessing, still for a woman, which is absolutely amazing. 1995 and 96 were your, just looking at the stats, were your 2 best earnings year. What do you think triggered that? Like you said, it takes sometimes 11 years to perfect the craft. It looks like that was the middle of kind of your career. You figured it out maybe those years. You kind of learned, and then what do you think triggered that year for your big run?
I guess you call it 3 words: D. Wayne Lucas. So
coach.
So I was fortunate that I started riding for Lucas. So when I came to Kentucky in the fall of 1993, I had always been a bit intimidated about going to Kentucky, but I was riding at Arlington Park at the time, and my clients were headed that way. And I was going to go to Gulfstream Park for the winter, but they went there for the Keeneland fall meet and the fall meet at Churchill on their way to Gulfstream. So I followed my business. And on opening day of the Keeneland fall meet, which was in 1993, I was on 4 horses and I won 3 races. And I ran second, got beat a nose on the other one. And so I was not as confident as I'm about to sound, but I was calculating, and I knew enough about Wayne Lucas to know that he expected confidence. He wasn't going to ride a rider who wasn't confident. So I asked my agent the next day to take me by Lucas's barn because I wanted to introduce myself to him. And he actually said, "Wayne's not going to ride us." And I said, "I didn't ask you for your opinion. I asked you for the barn."
I love it.
So we go by the barn, and he was actually standing there talking with his assistant trainer, who at that time was Todd Pletcher. And so we kind of stood off to the side to sort of let it be known that we were waiting to talk to him when he wasn't immersed in another conversation. So when they wrapped up, he sort of waved us over, and I came over and I said, "Hello, Mr. Lucas. My name is Donna Barton. I won 3 races here yesterday, which makes me the leading rider, and I was pretty sure you were going to want to meet me."
That's a great intro. I like it.
So we shook hands, and he said, "Hello, Donna Barton. Well, aren't you confident?" And I said, "Well, I know that you like to ride the hot hand, and right now I am the hot hand, and so I just thought I should come introduce myself to you." And so that fall meet, I rode like 2 races for him because Pat Day was out of town. And afterwards, he said, "Good job. You overrode a little bit, but I understand you're nervous, but good job. Didn't win." so that was a relationship building process. So then I went to Gulfstream Park for the winter, and he was at Santa Anita. And so I really didn't, get to talk to him all winter. Todd Pletcher had a string down at Gulfstream Park and rode the riders that he was comfortable with. And so when we got back up to Kentucky in the spring, I would go by his barn every single morning. And long story short, it was that progression of just the work. He finally started letting me work some of the horses, and he saw that I had a really good rapport with the horses, and that the 2-year-olds were really good for me and with me, because there are a lot of riders who are phenomenal riders, but they're a little bit afraid of the gate. And there are other riders who are phenomenal riders, but don't love riding 2-year-olds. But I was a good gate rider, and I liked riding the 2-year-olds, and I especially liked to get on him a couple of times in advance to sort of nurture that relationship and know him a little better. And so I started riding kind of all of his 2-year-olds. And if they turned out that they could run, Pat Day would ride them, but I was okay with that. I mean, it was just, I was working my way into the barn. And then by 95, 96, I was riding a lot of horses for Wayne in Hennessy, second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And not just Wayne, because I was riding for Wayne, Dale Romans' dad, Jerry Romans, was one of the top trainers in Kentucky. And I started riding for Jerry Romans. And so my Wayne helped to sort of get the word out about me, and people accept me. And I picked up a lot of business in Kentucky because of that.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. Like you got, like, telling your agent is how me starting the show, I kind of hit up the trainers. You don't know until you ask. You know what I mean? You got to put yourself out there. You know what you had inside of you, and you were correct. So it's good stuff. I love to see that. Love to see, that's just the way you should go about. If you want to do something, you got to ask, you got to be there. You got to be in person. You don't know unless you try or fail or succeed at stuff. So this is a great way to go about stuff.
And by the way, as far as having guests on your show, I think if people are in this sport and they don't consider themselves an ambassador of the sport, then they're not looking at it correctly. And so I would hope that anybody, when Mare reached out to me, I researched you both a little bit, looked at your Twitter feed, and I could see that you were both fans of the sport. And so my immediate answer was yes, happy to do it. So really, I think anybody who is in the sport and makes a living from it should consider themselves an ambassador and should say yes to you. And you can tell them I said that, Mike.
Oh, I will. I appreciate it. I love it. You're the best.
Well, we were talking about guests, and Mike and I were talking right before you came on, and we were talking about Farron Pedersen, who is an incredible female jockey right now in the Midwest. And she came on the show a couple weeks ago. Geez, felt like forever ago. But she was talking about how coming up into this game, there were some people that weren't taking her as seriously because she was a female. People didn't necessarily believe that this girl could ride. And there was a lot of people saying that she couldn't do it on the way. Did you face that at all in your jockey career, in any part of horse racing? And if so, how did you overcome that?
I think everybody faces that. I think where people make the mistake is saying it's because I'm a girl. It's because I'm a Mexican. It's because I'm from Venezuela. It's because I grew up in Chicago in a non-horse racing family, and people think that there's no way I can ride. So everybody faces that. Everybody faces the doubt and the uncertainty. And so it becomes a challenge. And yes, I certainly faced that. I remember going to a guy named Wilson Brown's barn, and we were at Canterbury at the time, and I rode for him ultimately later in Canterbury and at Remington Park. And the first time, Pete Antonucci, the agent I talked about, I actually had the bug still at the time, and we went by and introduced ourselves to him. And he said, well, thanks for stopping by, young lady, but I don't ride girls. And he was from Oklahoma, so he had that accent. And I said, well, Mr. Brown, I appreciate that, but I don't ride like a girl. And so he started watching me ride. And fittingly, the next day, I beat one of his horses by a nose on the wire. And so the next time I went by his barn, he said, you're right, young lady, you don't ride like a girl, right? And so, I mean, you just have to, it can be a conversation starter, one. But the other thing is that when people ask me if I was at a disadvantage being a female in a male sport, my first answer was, how would I know? I've only ever been a girl. So I have nothing to compare it to. But the second answer was, when I went into a new riding colony, like if I went to Gulfstream Park for the first time or Arlington Park for the first time, I had had enough success that my reputation somewhat preceded me, not always, but somewhat. And people wanted to see this girl ride who apparently could ride. And same with Farron Peterson, the girl can ride. And I mean, I pulled her up. I pulled up videos just to see. I see she's winning races at Monmouth Park a couple of years ago. And I'm like, I got to see if this girl can actually ride. And I watched, and she can really ride. Now, I would do the same thing if it was an apprentice coming from Venezuela. You know, this kid's winning races left and right up in New York. I got to see if the kid can ride. So you doubt everybody until you see it. And so I think that's really the bottom line, is that jockeys face rejection every single day. That's the name of this game. And you just can't take it personally. You just have to keep proving yourself day in and day out.
Yeah, they put in a lot of, like you said, they have to put in so much stuff you don't see for jockeys to get those good mounts. They're riding early. They're taking B and D horses, you know, knowing pretty much you don't have a chance to win this race, but you keep riding for me, you know, you'll get your shot. Like you're saying, all you can do is prove yourself. You know, you get an opportunity and you prove them wrong. And that's what you did for sure. And show them that you can do it, not even prove them wrong. Just, hey, I can do this too, you know?
One of the things that Steve Asmussen used to say is that you can't tell whether or not a jockey can really ride until you ride them on one of your own horses, because whether you're a gambler or a trainer that has a horse in the race, but that jockey's not on your horse, you don't know what their instructions are. Like you might go, that's the stupidest ride I've ever seen, but they rode 100% to instructions, and it was something that the trainer wanted to try with this horse. And so that's why it takes that relationship building happens in the morning. And you're like, you know, you just keep stopping by every morning at 5:30 in the morning. Need any help this morning? Everything all right? And also making conversations with them, you know, like, wow, that was a tough beat in the third race yesterday. A little unlucky or whatever. Like, trainers like to know that you're watching their horses. That's the only thing they really want to talk about is their own horse anyway. So.
That's true. Yeah. They don't want to hear about everyone else. What's going on.
Right. So that relationship building starts in the morning, and then you eventually get them to put you on a horse in the morning, and then they can see what sort of rapport you have with that horse, and then you eventually ride a race for them. But it takes time. It doesn't happen quickly.
Exactly. And then, so at the end of you had, like you said, you didn't have the longest jockey career. Was that the people I think you maybe called it a little earlier, probably would have won definitely some more races. Was that just like, this is it, I want to do like, you know, field reporting, or did you have a different career mindset? What kind of happened when you decided this is it, I want to move on?
Well, I rode for 11 and a half years, and I loved it for 11 years. But the last 6 months just weren't fun for me anymore. It started to feel like I had a job, and I had never felt like that. And, you know, in the horse racing, there's a lot of peaks and valleys, and I had been through some of these valleys before. And I knew if I just doubled up on my work and everything else that goes into it, that I could come out the other side and be fine. It was Turfway Park was getting ready to, I think it was like September. Yeah, it was September. We were at Turfway Park, and I was probably going to end up having to ride there for the winter because I didn't have the business to go to Gulfstream Park. Meanwhile, I had been dating Frank Brothers for 5 years, and Frankie was a very successful trainer. And first of all, we didn't want kids because we traveled so much, and so there was no reason for us to get married. And there's this archaic rule in racing that many of you know about, where in almost every state, if a jockey marries a trainer, then that jockey has to ride the trainer's horse in every race, or they can't ride the race. And so we didn't get married because I did ride some horses for Frankie, but I never wanted to be in a situation where I rode all the horses for anybody, much more my husband. And so, or neither did he want to be in a situation where he had to ride the same jockey on every horse. And so, so we just didn't get married because it didn't make sense. And then when I was out of love with it, I just, like I said, felt like it was work. He was getting ready to go to New Orleans for the winter with his string, and I was going to stay in Kentucky, and we talked about it. And I just decided, yeah, it's time. Like, I'm ready to move on.
Yep.
At that time, I didn't know that I would go into doing the horse racing coverage. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
I was content to live happily ever after.
Yeah.
And I have. That was 20 in November. It'll be 24 years since we got married. So anyway, that's what happened.
Yep. Good stuff. And kind of on the horse reporting, was that your idea with the NBC? I know you're kind of the pioneer of that. We love it as just fans watching it. Was that your idea to, hey, throw me on a horse and I can interview you? Or how did that conversation start? How'd that go about? And I also, quick on the side, I didn't know you rode the opposite way at the Derby.
Oh. Well, Mike, you're showing your age in your youth, and I'm about to show my age in my maturity, in that I wasn't the pioneer. Charles C. Canny was. So
sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure Charles C. Canny gets the credit due, because she started doing that. She was the first person to do it. Like, nothing to do with a woman. There had been nobody before her. She was an exercise rider at Belmont Park and very attractive. And they started asking her to do some of the TV coverage here and there. And then somehow or another, I don't know if it's her idea or the network's idea, but she ended up on course. And so fast forward to, I retired in 1998. And then in that 98, 99 winter, I did some interviewing at the fairgrounds, because the owner of the fairgrounds at the time, Brian Krantz, asked me if I would interview the winning connections after the race. But that was just in the winner's circle, and it was really in-house stuff. But when I came back in the spring of 99 to Kentucky, John Asher had been promoted to a vice president position. He had been doing the handicapping analysis with Mike Battaglia, and he was the paddock analyst, and asked me if I wanted to do that. And I said, sounds great. I'd love to do it. And so I was still galloping horses for my husband at the time. And I was doing just a lot like Maggie Wolfendale does, but without the kids. I don't even know how she does it. But anyway, unbeknownst to me, NBC wanted a new horseback reporter. They had Greg McCarran doing that at the time. But in Greg's defense, he was also a trainer. He had retired from being a jockey. He was training. And so he did this. And for him, it was like, it wasn't something he wanted to make a career out of. He did the horseback reporting because he felt like they needed the help. But it wasn't something he was looking to advance his career path in. And so they wanted somebody who was more committed to that as a career position. And so, they asked me, they came into Churchill Downs to observe in 2000. In 2000, the spring of 2000, they came in to observe because ABC still had the Kentucky Derby, but NBC had the contract of started the following year. And they asked me if I would join. They watched my on-air analysis with Battaglia and asked me if I'd join their on-air broadcasting team. And so my first show was the Breeders' Cup in 2000, which was at Churchill Downs. And talk about baptism by fire, by the way. It's not like they told me any questions to ask. They didn't. They just said, Donna, we'll come to you before the race for a report, and then you'll interview the jockey after the race. I'd never done any of that. So it was all,
That's amazing. That's intense. Talk about being, just because, like you said, hey, it's not a lot of prep, but also you're holding a rein, a mic, and your smile's lighting up the camera, so you're maintaining everything. That's good stuff. So you pulled it off, and that's that. We love it.
I will say I came home after that. Back then, Breeders' Cup was only one day, and I came home after that one day, and I said to my husband, "Look, I know they're paying me well, like really well compared to what you make as an exercise rider, but it's not worth it." And he talked me off the ledge, told me that, the Barbara Streisand story again about how she hates to perform. And so I'm glad he talked me off the ledge, because I've enjoyed it.
Well, we are too. Thank you for that. Hey, we got to wrap this up. I could go for hours here with Donna. We appreciate you taking the time to come on. Thank you for giving us this side of you and joining us this morning. And have a great rest of the year. Up seeing you. Up.
pleasure, Mary. It was nice with you, and yeah,
You as well.
I enjoyed talking with you guys today.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.
You too.
And we are back. That was awesome. Talk about going for hours. I mean, that was so cool.
It definitely was, and I hope it didn't cut out at the end. I know my Wi-Fi was weird, but that was my first time in the technical booth here on Smoking Mare.
You're doing great. It looked great. No, it didn't. It was just a little spotty, but no, we got everything from Donna. And once again, thank you again, Donna Brothers, for coming on. We appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, let's jump right into that horse of the week here. Wrap this all up.
Yeah, and we have this submitted from John Sessa, and this is just a wonderful photograph that he took.
What a cool picture. Yeah, John does some photos, it looks like, on the side, too. He has some other ones he sent to me. They're all amazing. But look how cool that is when they come out ready to go. This is so intense, probably, for the jockeys and the horse when the gate opens. Thanks for that, John.
Yeah, I have an obsession with black and white photography, too. So it just makes it
That's
more
a solid pick. Right. And we got just a quick play of the day for me, and we'll wrap up the show here. We're going race 6. Friday, Gulfstream Park. I'm thinking this horse is going to float up actually to 4-1. If you don't mess with my boy, Zephyr off the claim, and Hermelio with the speed horse at Gulfstream. Out of the one horse, we're going Golden Isle, race 6 to get it home. Play of the day, I'm thinking about 4-1 on this horse here. Zephyr off the claim. Right in the one hole, it says wire 'em and get that play of the day home. Last week's double got canceled because of the weather, so sorry about that. So if you wanted to fire a double, race 5, use the 389, and the one horse right here in race 6 at Gulfstream Park. That's a double, race 5 at Gulfstream, 389 with the 1 in race 6, the play of the day. Let's get it home.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and once again, everyone, wrapping it up here. Thanks again for tuning in. Another week of the Smoking Mare. Everyone have safe trips if you're riding. Everyone get your tickets home if you're firing. Let's all be easy. Smoke, smoke.